Tonight, some evacuees in Regina pack up and head back up to northern Saskatchewan as the wildfire threat in their area drops.
Oh, they just treated us so good.
Also, how an act of kindness blossomed into a lasting connection, celebrated today at a citizenship ceremony.
And all those in favor of the motion?
Plus, cheers as a Brandon school division rejects calls to remove library books on sexuality and gender identity.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, May 24th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with some good news in the fight against wildfires in our province. Thanks to rain and cooler temperatures, the provincial fire ban is lifted and some wildfire evacuees are heading home.
I had a great time here. It's so beautiful. They treated us with respect. They fed us. They gave us clothes to wear. And it's just awesome. I wouldn't want it. I just don't want to leave from here. No.
No?
No. They treated us too good.
People from Isle Across evacuated their community more than a week ago. They've been staying at the University of Regina residence, and today they loaded into a bus to make the long trip home. Some evacuees told us they expect to find spoiled food at home due to power outages, but they're not concerned about safety. The Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency is still supporting some evacuees in North Battleford, Lloydminster and Regina. The Métis Nation is helping about 500 evacuees in Saskatoon. As for the fire ban, the SPSA says there are still some areas in the far north with high fire risk, but the province-wide fire ban isn't necessary.
We did not get the heavy bands of precipitation in the far north of the province, north of the Churchill River. However, those areas are not heavily populated, and we will be managing the fire risk by the provincial parks, continuing to look at burn bans and restrictions, and the northern municipalities will continue to monitor and restrict activities related to fires in their northern communities. So that will resolve most of the potential for human-caused fire starts in that northern area without having to have a provincial fire ban in place.
Taking a look at the fire numbers, there are about 24 active fires in Saskatchewan right now, 5 of those not contained. There are 4 wildfires over 60,000 hectares in size. The biggest is the Shaw Fire near Buffalo Narrows at 133,000 hectares, and 2 highways are closed. Highway 910 from 165 to Besnard Lake and Highway 911 from 106 to Deschambault Lake. And we have almost doubled the 5-year average of fires already this season. Our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, is by now with a look at how the weather has impacted things. Ethan?
Well, the rain today, Sam, and expected tomorrow has lowered the fire risk through a good chunk of the province. Now in a low risk, really, through much of south and central and portions of the north. Been a long time since we've seen a good chunk of that. Southeastern Saskatchewan, the rain still to come to you in the coming days. That means your risk is still extreme. And in the far northwest, where the rain has avoided you, still a high risk in there. And air quality statements in effect still in that portion of the province. We saw them added for the Uranium City area today. And just because the fire ban has come to an end for the Northern Saskatchewan Administrative District and Crown lands and provincial parks north of Highway 16 doesn't mean that rural municipalities don't have their own bans in place. As you can see, a lot of them, especially through central Saskatchewan, still in effect. The smoke likely going to be moving a bit southward in the coming days here as winds begin to shift into Saskatoon and central Saskatchewan. And Sam, we also have severe weather today. I'll be bringing you an update on that coming up a little bit later in the newscast.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
From Mosaic Stadium, home to the Rough Riders, to the Brandt Centre, where the Pats take the ice, Regina's event centres are not generating enough money. Today, City Council said the corporation in charge could borrow millions of dollars to make ends meet. But as Alexander Kwan reports, some decision makers are not happy about it.
He can't get him. Touchdown, Saskatchewan.
The facilities have been home to some of Regina's biggest events, and yet it's struggling to pay the bills. Now the organization in charge of Regina's exhibition grounds, the Mosaic Stadium, the Brandt Centre, and Tourism Regina has been cleared to take on more debt. On Wednesday, City Council voted 9-2 to allow Regina Exhibition Association Limited, or REAL, to get a loan. That's all to make sure the organization doesn't go into the red. Even some of those who voted in favor were not happy to make that decision.
This is our city entity. We own it. And I would say that I would agree that city taxpayers are tired of having to bail this organization out.
REAL was unable to host some events over the COVID-19 pandemic and lost money. Despite hosting the Grey Cup in 2022, the organization was facing a $6.9 million debt in September and was at risk of being unable to pay up. But Wednesday's vote means REAL will be able to get a $3.4 million loan, which will keep it within its debt limit. The news is being welcomed by REAL CEO Tim Reid.
The ability to access the funding that was in place was needed. It certainly allows us the flexibility to operate in the ways that we have in the past. And so I'm really appreciative of the debate that Council had, the questions that they offered. These aren't easy decisions to be made these days.
Reid said that in the past, REAL made most of its money through large events such as concerts. On Wednesday, he warned Council that era may be over, as costs have risen and other locations are offering cash bonuses to bring in acts. The vote by Council means REAL will be able to operate as normal. One of the conditions imposed by Council will see the organization work with city administration to create a long-term plan for financial sustainability. That could even mean a change to REAL's business model. A report on that is set to come back to Council before this year's budget. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
The Regina Public Library will be relocating its central location sooner than expected. Officials anticipate a new temporary home by fall 2024. That's in preparation for the demolition and new build in its current location. The news has reignited frustration from people who hoped the heritage building would evade the wrecking ball.
We're completely obliterating any kind of measure of history of this city, and if we want to understand both our history, which is again still part of the mandate of the library, then we need to maintain and expand those buildings. And what better example of that would be to rehabilitate and expand a current heritage building.
The relocation's early move is to avoid more costs of upkeep, according to officials. They also say they're not swaying on the plan for a new building.
Those expressions, public opinion about this building, about how the board should proceed. It's great that people are engaged in that civic conversation. The board did make that decision last September, so it is a decision that's made and that we are moving forward with.
Right now, it's uncertain where the library's temporary location will be, but it's expected to remain downtown, and those working on the project will search for about 65,000 square feet of space. Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh took aim at the Saskatchewan First Act and the Saskatchewan Party government during his visit in North Battleford today. Singh spoke at the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations All Chiefs Assembly.
With respect to the SAS First legislation, the Saskatchewan legislation, it's legislation that doesn't actually recognize the importance of working with Indigenous communities and recognizing that for a project to really be successful, it's got to work in partnership with the people on whose land it's being built. That's the only way to really build something that's going to be successful for everyone.
In mid-March, the government of Saskatchewan passed the Saskatchewan First Act. The government says the law defends against federal overreach and protects the province's economic autonomy. The FSIN says they feel it infringes on inherent treaty rights. Singh says development on Indigenous lands has to benefit Indigenous peoples and needs to be collaborative. Saskatchewan has amended its labor laws in an effort to further protect workers on the job. One change involves making it explicit in legislation that incidents of harassment must be investigated. Previously, there was an expectation. Now, the law requires employers to carry out an investigation. Another change is to ensure employers have a violence prevention policy. A University of Regina professor specializing in workplace safety says that is overdue.
Requiring employers to have a violence policy is really important. Preventing violence is something that maybe we didn't think about 10, 15 years ago, but, it's increasing in workplaces across Saskatchewan. And so having that requirement is important.
The government has given employers 1 year. In May of 2024, employers need a violence prevention policy in place and will be required to investigate incidents of violence. Thousands of new Canadians are taking their oath of citizenship at ceremonies across the country this week, including at one in Saskatoon. The ceremony is the final step in their immigration journey, a journey that's often difficult and lonely. But as Aishwarya Dutta reports, the kindness of strangers can go a long way.
King of Canada.
Komal Majatia wanted to be surrounded by family when she took the citizenship oath. That includes the people she adopted as her parents in Saskatoon.
We first met at Extra Foods. We used to work together. It was my first job in Canada.
Majatia received help from her co-worker, Tina Doel, when she was confronted by a racist customer.
He told me at my face that I don't want brown lady to touch my food. And I was about to cry. And then she stood up and then she had a big fight with that guy, and then she was just so mad at him and she was like, get out from the store.
The act of kindness of a stranger turned into a lifelong connection. Majatia turned to Doel for support when she experienced a miscarriage, had a car accident, and gave birth to her children.
My two daughters, one is 4.5 years old and one is just turned 1. Both of them held by her first. Yeah. So for them, they are the grandparents.
And we feel very lucky that we have this relationship and this bond, and it's just been a wonderful journey to be on, and we couldn't be more happier.
Majatia says she was lucky to have support through the many challenges of settling into a new country. Ebiye Marie arrived just before the pandemic, and that made navigating a new country and culture difficult.
My journey has been so overwhelming, coupled with the winter. We came in 2019 June, very close to the pandemic. So coupled the pandemic and as a new immigrant into Canada was very overwhelming. There were a lot of difficulties, trying to learn new culture.
She's still trying to find a job in her chosen field of education.
Like a dream come true to me.
Mohammad Najmul Hussain has a good job now, but says he applied for a lot of jobs.
At least 50 jobs I applied for. Even I applied for Walmart. Like everywhere I applied. That time my thinking was that I need a job and I need some Canadian experience so that I can go forward.
For all of them, citizenship ceremony is an opportunity to celebrate the life they've built in the country they've chosen.
My family is incomplete without my parents, Canadian parents.
Aishwarya Dutta, CBC News, Saskatoon.
There is something soothing about the sound of rain, especially when you're living in a really dry province with an early wildfire season. This afternoon, the rain was really coming down in Saskatoon and in other parts of the province, and it looks like the spotty showers and maybe even some storms could continue into the evening. Ethan will have your forecast after the break. Stay with us.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
Our weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now, soaking in Saskatoon today.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's the first time Saskatoon has had actual rain in a long period of time. I think the last time you got moisture in Saskatoon was snowfall back in April. So this is the first significant rain of the year for you, for sure. And it is moving towards Saskatoon once again. Widespread showers moving through the province right now as part of a trough that's starting to move through. We do have a few thunderstorms popping up in extreme southern sections. And in fact, there is a severe thunderstorm watch there right now for the Assiniboine-Gravelbourg region as well, extending into the Shaunavon and Cypress Hills region as well. We'll watch to see if those get extended north and eastward overnight tonight. And since this is the first time we've kind of had any real severe summer weather, a reminder of the difference between watches and warnings. A watch just means that conditions are favorable for the weather event to happen. A warning is one step higher than that. The weather event is imminent or occurring, and you should take your precautions. And right now, though, thankfully, it's just watches out there as of this point. But you can see the line where the rain is falling, much cooler in southwestern Saskatchewan, more than a 10-degree temperature difference, in fact. It's really Regina and southeast where we are seeing that warm air surging in, and that's fueling that storm activity that we're seeing this afternoon and likely overnight tonight as well. And another thing that's happening as well that's helping that is relative humidity values, close to 100% this afternoon in Kindersley. Pretty remarkable considering that a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we were in the teens for relative humidity, and this is quite a lot of moisture for May. And it's all thanks to this low pressure system now dropping down into the states, a trough extending from it, and that could bring some severe weather to western and central sections overnight tonight. The system going to be moving eastward to Regina and eastern sections as we get to tomorrow, but then again, tomorrow afternoon, we can expect some pockets of rain in Regina and eastern sections, and even heading into Friday morning, some heavier pockets in southern Saskatchewan before we start to watch an area of high pressure move in. But don't be fooled. Just because the severe weather hasn't started yet doesn't mean that it's going to pick up, because this storm risk is valid until midnight, and after midnight, the storm risk moves eastward to Regina and eastern sections, and that's also through the day tomorrow as well. We could see another round of some less severe thunderstorms, but a few pockets of that possible. Tonight, strong winds, moderate-sized hail, and not ruling out the possibility of an isolated tornado as well. Rainfall amounts kind of hard to calculate because they're all going to be based on who gets the thunderstorms and how heavy that rain is, but some good amounts, 5 to 10 millimeters possible in some sections, especially in southern Saskatchewan through the day tomorrow. Winds going to be diminishing, though, as this trough begins to move out, and some gusts in the 20 to 30 range tomorrow, and we'll see those continue to diminish heading into Friday. Regina, we are still unsettled, though, these next few days. This is kind of going to be a rainy, cloudy period here with sporadic showers here and there. Not too much in the way of moisture unless we get the thunderstorms. And then you see that high pressure moving in for the beginning of next week, and that means the sunshine returns. Saskatoon, again, tomorrow, I think maybe some rain for you folks early in the day before we see some clearing through Friday, Saturday. Temperatures improving, so a little bit of an unsettled couple of days here, Sam, but the spring and even summer-like weather are returning right after that.
Well, we need the rain, but we also need it to not rain during the Cathedral Village Arts Festival Street Fair on Saturday, so let's see how that adjusts.
Yes, that's right. I'll put that request in now.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
We're back after the break. Welcome back. The Brandon School Division in Manitoba rejected a call to review books on topics of sex and gender identity. The meeting in Brandon actually had to be moved to a high school gym because so many people attended. Cameron McLean has more.
And all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much.
In the early hours of Wednesday morning, Brandon school trustees voted against a call to censor library books. Hundreds of people packed the gym at Vincent Massey High School, many wearing pride colors, including members of the board. Speaker after speaker voiced their opposition to banning books. First to speak was transgender teen Jason Foster.
If that content is banned and suppressed, they will think something is wrong. They will think something is wrong with themselves. Children will hate themselves. Children are going to kill themselves because they cannot change how they feel. Children are going to die because they believe their existence is wrong.
Penny Jones talked about her experience as a parent of a transgender child.
Banning books essentially is saying he doesn't matter, that who he is wrong.
Out of 30 people who spoke during the 6-hour meeting, only 2 supported creating a committee to review the books, including John Rosendahl.
As a parent, I do support formation of a committee to look at materials in the library and put them, if you will, the light of day on them. And if there are materials that are deemed to be inappropriate, make it public for everybody so everybody has the chance to discuss this.
Earlier this month, a delegation called on the division to remove books discussing sex and LGBTQ themes. At that meeting, Trustee Brianna Siklicki said it took courage to raise concerns about these issues, comments that drew wide condemnation at Tuesday's meeting.
I would like to thank Lorraine Hackenschmidt for her presentation because
In the end, Siklicki cast the lone vote in favor of a committee.
And I'm not saying to only look at LGBTQ books. I'm saying look at all books. Not that contain this kind of imagery and words. Because why are we trying to sexualize minors?
Tuesday's meeting was interrupted by frequent cheers and boos, including when this protester was kicked out for causing a disturbance.
I'm requesting that that individual be removed from the meeting.
Mark Trollope said the proceedings had caused pain, but there was a silver lining.
I think we need to thank them because with that presentation last week, look what we got. Lots of support.
Despite the vote, Board Chair Linda Ross says the division is still evolving when it comes to gender diversity.
It's sad that we haven't evolved further, but we're on the right track.
A track parent Tara Leach thinks children are already leading the way.
They are finding amazing ways to navigate this complexity and create diverse, resilient community. If you talk openly and respectfully with the young people in your life, I'm hopeful that you will see this too. Please, just try.
Cameron McLean, CBC News, Brandon.
And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
And a potentially stormy night in Regina and southern Saskatchewan. Some storms could be severe this evening, but warm at midnight, still 20 degrees. Winds pretty breezy from the southeast. We'll get some clearing tomorrow. There is still a chance of some showers by the early morning, but we're already almost at 20 degrees by that point. And then heading into the afternoon, up toward 24 degrees, cloud cover building in. Possibility of some more thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. And again, some could turn severe as well. For Saskatoon, I think the severe threat dropping off, and it's just light rain that you're looking at tonight, around 15 degrees. You're still pretty warm tomorrow as well. A little bit breezy, some north winds around 30 kilometers an hour, and heading toward the afternoon, still cloudy, still a chance of showers, and those winds a little bit breezy as well. 18 degrees, so a little bit cooler for that part of the province, Sam.
All right, thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
And before we go tonight, the irrepressible, charismatic, and multi-Grammy Award-winning singer Tina Turner has died at the age of 83. Also known as the Queen of Rock and Roll, Turner burnt up stages and sold out concerts. She became famous in the 60s, singing with husband Ike Turner's blues band. The singer made headlines when she left him in 1976, calling him a drug addict who beat her. If success is the best revenge, Turner wrote the book on that too. She went on to become one of the best-selling artists in music history before retiring in 2015. Her family says she died peacefully after a long illness at her home in Switzerland. And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Ethan's back with more at 11. Up next, Game 4 between Carolina and Florida in the NHL playoffs. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. Enjoy the game.